Good morning. This is the second time I'm doing this. Basically, this is a very quick catch up. If you didn't join our Zoom last week, this is one of the PowerPoints we looked at. We looked at how the education system is organised in Great Britain. And let's go through this really quickly again. We do have a Zoom later on today at 11. I'm making these recordings in case you keep missing the Zooms. I will be contacting people who have not been on any Zooms and not done any work for a little while, because actually when we come back next week, I am going to be at school, but I'll be teaching English, maths and science. There won't be any chance to teach sociology, so you really will have to come onto the Zooms or you'll be quite behind. You need to be able to understand that the education system is one of those institutions that we study in sociology because it represents society on every level, just the same way that we study families, the same way that we study law and order and crime and punishment, and the same way that we study particular groups in sociology. Schools show exactly how society is and how society wants to be. So some of these forces that govern how schools work are political, either ideologies, some of them are just economic, and some of them are down to the traditions. So what are some of the factors? Okay, those last two pages, I'll go back really quickly. This page is just what I want you to take away from the film. And these, when you go onto them, are 5 websites that I need you to go and have a quick look at to do your own personal research. Make some notes, because if you want a 7 to 9, you need to be able to quote evidence, and these places will give you evidence of what we're talking about. Okay, the education system as we know it was set up in 1945. You need to know that. It had 3 types of schools: grammar schools, secondary moderns, and technical schools. It was meant to be this equal for all type of system. It was meant to keep vulnerable children safe. It was meant to keep children out of the factories. Remember, children weren't even recognised maybe until the 50s, 60s. There was no such thing as a teenager, and you were expected to be a little adult basically. From about the age of 3 to 5, you could go out to work and earn money for your family. So part of that was schools were part of a way to stop that from happening. It was really popular with most parents, and it changed to a comprehensive system in the 1970s, which is kind of the system you live in, although you've had some add-ons. How did it work? When you got to 11 years old, everyone had to go to school 5 to 10. And then when you got to 11 years old, instead of going out to work, you would then do an exam called the 11 plus. And the 11 plus would split you into 3 groups. So if you were very low ability, you would go to a technical school, and a technical school, well, it's hard to say what you would learn. It's like a special needs place, I suppose, but you would learn some sort of practical things and go into very practical jobs, go and work in, I don't know, fruit picking or something, or you'd be prepared to go and work in factories and stuff like this. You could go to a secondary modern, which meant you were of middle ability, but then you'd get to a secondary modern and it would split you into 2 groups. It split you into boys and girls. Girls would learn very practical things like cookery and embroidery, needlework, childcare, these sorts of things. And boys would learn really practical things like metalwork and carpentry. So they would still be going into practical jobs, but perhaps a little bit more skilled than those people going to technical schools who'd go and learn bricklaying, or how to work on a work site. And then there was a 3rd type of school, grammar schools. Now, you could only go to college or sit exams if you were smart enough to go to a grammar school. And I'm sure some of you have heard grammar schools still exist, right? So, I wonder what that means. What are the arguments for that system? What are the arguments against? Clearly, people thought there were lots of arguments against, because 25 years later, the Labour government then, they did it to gain more popularity, to be honest with you. They didn't really do it for people. Decided they were going to scrap that whole system and they were going to just have comprehensive schools. A comprehensive school took every type of ability pupil in there, and then basically you'd become more meritocratic. So if you worked hard and you could do the work, then you'd be put in for your exams. It had nothing to do with your ability, which of course we already know that some people being able to read and write early, having that culture